Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our wonderful congregational interview today. We do this once a month and we are so privileged and proud to be able to interview a truly wonderful member of the Savannah community. For those of you who don't know and haven't had the pleasure of meeting our wonderful mayor, he is Mayor Van Johnson. We're not going to give his bio because we're going to begin by inviting him to talk a little bit about himself. But just to let you know, he decided last year to win this position 1 month before the whole world shut down. So he got 1 month of preparation for a worldwide pandemic that we hadn't seen in 100 years. And so it's a real pleasure. So we're going to spend most of the time. We have people here on Zoom. I'm going to invite you, for those who didn't hear, just came on, to keep on mute until you want to ask a question. Everybody's welcome to ask questions. But for now, I want to again present our Mayor Van Johnson. Thank you so much for coming here today. We know your schedule is beyond busy, but we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Haas, and thank you for the opportunity. And thank you so much for your leadership and your friendship. I mean, our friendship goes to when you first came here, and you have just been a dynamo in our city, making sure that that you're present in the moment. Some of our most difficult moments, and I appreciate you for doing that and for putting in the extra time into the great people of the third oldest synagogue in the United States.
Good job.
In the United States. So I'm glad to be with you all from Mikveh Israel.
And I guess since I've been here and before you were mayor, obviously we called you kind of the wind because you were everywhere at the same time, miraculously. We don't know if there was some time travel, there's some magic, but you were everywhere. And now you're in this wonderful position. But before we get into that, because I don't think everyone realizes, because you're so synonymous with Savannah, that you're not from Georgia originally. So where did you grow up and where did you go to school and what brought you to Georgia?
Well, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Two phenomenal parents. My mother is from Brooklyn her entire life. I'm from the Bed-Stuy section of Brooklyn. My father is actually from Savannah, from a place outside of Savannah called Estill, South Carolina, at which he migrated with his family to Savannah. He went into the military, and as you know, during those times when folks went to the military, they got out, they went north. And so he met my mom in a hospital where she was a nurse and he was interning as a medic, and they fell in love, and then I came around. And so I've been raised in the New York City public school system. Obviously, New York, Brooklyn is a very diverse community, and I think I really appreciate that, of just being able to appreciate people for who they are and what they bring to our collective table. And I graduated from high school at 16 years old. I went to Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn. For those that are familiar with Brooklyn, is one of the older schools in North America. It's on Flatbush Avenue. Graduated from there at 16 years old. And my parents decided I was a little too young to go all the places I wanted to go. And so they said, well, maybe you should go live, if you're gonna go away, you have to go live with your grandmother in Savannah. And I'm like, I don't want to live in Savannah, because we used to get shipped down to Savannah during summertime. And, you know, to me, Savannah was like part hell. You know, we would come down during the summer where outside it was so hot and so humid that we couldn't come outside to play until about 6:30, 7 o'clock, until about 9 o'clock, and then we come in. I said, I wouldn't want to live down there. I came down, went to Savannah State, I said, I'm getting out of here, went to New York and tried to find employment, didn't, came back down here, did a graduate degree, went back to New York, couldn't find employment, came back and started working in Savannah. As many people know that are not from Savannah, you know, Savannah has a way of just capturing you. And then next thing you realize, I'm like, I'm really in love with this place. I'm really in love with these people. And, you know, then my journey from Savannah in terms of being a actual resident actually began.
And what you'll see of the people in our community, we have some people who've been here for years, some who've just moved here, some whose family, including people on this Zoom call, have been here for 100, 200 years. So I think we all see exactly what you're talking about. So you went to Savannah State, got undergraduate, graduate. What did you get your degrees in and where did you start working at? Because I know you from just always being here in politics. But
Right.
before that,
Well, my bachelor's, my undergrad is in business administration from Savannah State, and then I have a master's of public administration degree, but I have actually two of them. These types of things can only happen to me, but I have two MPA degrees, one from Savannah State and one from Georgia Southern at the same time. Like I said, it only happens to me. Essentially, what happened was I was at Savannah State, Georgia Southern took it over. And then Georgia Southern said, well, you can go back to Savannah State if you want to. By the time I had been at Georgia Southern for almost a year and a half. So I said, no, I'll just do both. So I ended up with two master's degrees from both universities. I started working with what was called the Youth Futures Authority at the time. Strangely enough, my boss was Dr. Otis Johnson, who we would later serve on city council together. And so I worked there for a while. Then I came to Chatham County, worked in human resources as an intern. I went to the Chatham County Police Department where I was a police officer for a while. I left the Chatham County Police Department. I went to Memorial Medical Center where I worked as a employment representative as a recruiter for Memorial. Worked there, and then I went back to Chatham County where I was the employee services manager, and then I was promoted up through the assistant human resources director, where I retired when I became mayor. Last year. Matter of fact, I retired from Chatham County on February 28th, 2020, and the pandemic essentially started March 1st, 2020. This stuff, it only happens to me. It only happens to me.
I thought you had a whole month. You're right. It was only a couple of days. I didn't think about that.
It's only to me.
Well, again, I think you've done what most people think a mayor should do, is basically work in a wide range of areas concerning the city, and then use all of the resources, all of your wonderful history with the community experiences to take it in. So that's an amazing, so you worked in a wide range of areas of city. What led you then to, I don't know what your first office was. You've been in office since I've been here, but I don't know what your office was when you first started running.
Right. So I had worked in the community for quite a while. I was a radio talk show host on WSOK. I had a column in the Savannah Tribune. And, at some point, it just kind of came along that, we need to have some younger voices on city council. And we had the need to have voices that represented more woke working people, because at the time, and really now, it's set up that the only way really to be successful in city council is that you have to either be retired, independently wealthy, or self-employed. And that does not necessarily reflect the majority of people in Savannah. So for 16 years, I was the alderman for the first district, which is it was downtown and then going west. It included Hutchinson Island, includes the airport, and I was there for 16 years and worked full time. And so it was very, very challenging. But I represented $1 million homes, and I represented folks who lived in public housing at the same time. Their needs were different. Their desires were different. How they viewed Savannah was different. And so for me, it was excellent practice to really be able to meet people where they were at the time. And more importantly, to get people to see life in Savannah as other people saw it. Because again, we all have different experiences. So, when you go down an empathy process, you go through it of helping people to see life as you see it. And that's how you bring together understanding.
All right, we're going to take a moment. Does anybody on Zoom have any questions so far? Because after this, we're going to go into his career as a mayor. Anybody have any questions about where he grew up and what brought him into politics? Because it's really incredible that you had a full-time job and for 16 years was an alder. That's really rare. And as you said, I think it's kudos to Savannah that we were welcoming younger people who were not independently employed to be in these positions. Right. So what was really exciting for the city is, and I think most people on this call are.
I think Mark Henley had a question.
Oh, does Mark? I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't see you. Just unmute yourself.
I did. Rabbi, let me ask you a question. I have an issue-related question.
Sure.
Is this the time, or would you rather stick with?
Why don't we go ahead and ask it now, and we're going to go into since you're asking.
Okay. First of all, Mayor Johnson, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. and joining us. My question has to do with the fact that Mikveh Israel is on one of Savannah's most beautiful squares.
Mhm.
And yet just a couple blocks east and a couple blocks east beyond that, we have a couple of other squares, both very, very beautiful, that are named after probably America's original sinners, slaveholders, believers in slavery and such and so. When I first moved down here and I saw that there was a square named after Calhoun, I couldn't believe it was that Calhoun. I talked with Pat Gunn about a month ago, and I'm aware of the efforts that she's making. I'm wondering where we stand on. And I just saw that the Talmadge Bridge is considering there's a consideration for a renaming. I'm wondering, in a general sense, and specifically to Calhoun and Whitfield squares, where we stand on trying to maybe render the legacy of slavery less potent, less public.
Okay.
Thank you. And we wanted to start off with an easy one. I was thinking you were going to ask him, like, what's his favorite ice cream flavor?
Well, yeah, okay. And what is your favorite ice cream flavor, especially when during those hot, sweaty summers?
So we'll go into that. So if you don't mind answering that question, Mayor, I know that's a really difficult question to start off with.
I mean, it's actually a really easy answer. And the answer is we haven't really discussed it. I mean, this council hasn't discussed it. I think that it's going to require a huge community discourse to be able to determine where we go with that. And I mean, I think there are great arguments on both sides. One side of it is that, history is history. And I think that it's important that we don't want to erase history, because I think in keeping history, it helps us to remind how far we've actually come. So I think, you have to balance that with the need of, like you said, honoring people who, in retrospect, were really desecrating people and those things. So I think that, the easiest answer is it's going to be more than a petition. It's going to have to really be, we're a city of history. People come here for history. And I think that sometimes in order to exemplify what good has come, you have to be able to tell the entire story. So I think personally, I wouldn't want to erase the story. We just have to figure out a way of telling the story in its entirety. So, my position would be that, we need to have those discussions as a community and small groups, and then ultimately large groups, and really get a feel for where people are to do that. Because, I want people to understand, like, for example, with Calhoun, for example, and it was that Calhoun, is that I don't want to create a situation where we never know, or our children or grandchildren don't know who Calhoun was. Mm-hmm. Because I think you have to be able, to appreciate what Savannah has done, you have to understand who Calhoun was, and now how this city has emerged in spite of that. So, on from there. We just have to be very careful about that. So, but I am open to the conversation. Hopefully, once we all survive COVID, we can start having those discussions. And my favorite ice cream is cookies and cream.
Perfect.
Although I'm a little lactose intolerant. I think the older I'm getting, I think, milk doesn't really do me all that well. You understand sometimes.
I'm 100% lactose intolerant. So
yeah, it's just not fun sometimes.
So that's a really good question to go into what we're talking about, because you are elected mayor. And so we, again, obviously, and we have the inauguration, I think it's called, or installation. So I don't know if any of you were at the installation. This was before COVID. So
you were there?
I was there. It was like packed. It felt more like a rock concert. I thought I was seeing the Stones or Bob Marley or somebody like that in concert, because if people don't know, every single position had a new member except for one. So everybody was new to their position except for one person. How did it feel to be standing up there with this entirely new group of people? It was with a famous gospel singer coming down and singing. It was incredible.
Well, it was an incredible day. They said, well, maybe, they said, we think we might only have about, 9 to 1,100 people there. We ended up almost 4,000 people, and the Civic Center was over capacity. They had to send some people out, but it was a great coming together of the community. I mean, I was feeling a lot of different emotions. As you know, Rabbi Haas was extremely emotional. I mean, it just took you up in this roller coaster. I was very hopeful for what I felt that we were moving to. I mean, I was a little distressed. We had a totally brand new council. We had 7 out of 9 members that are brand new, have never served in government before. I'm new in my position. I'm not new to council. And so I recognized that there was going to be a huge learning curve. I'm keeping in mind that, of course, that they were not new to life. They were not new to community service, but they were new to elected service. And sometimes people say, well, we know how this works until you get into it and find out it's quite different. And so I was admittedly nervous. I finally realized, I think I was at the point where I was looking at this mountain now, and I'm like, wow, Lord, you allowed me to be here. And it's like, maybe I bit off more than I could chew. So the honeymoon was relatively short. I only kissed a couple of babies and visited a few schools. And then, everybody knows March happened. And, the trajectory we're on now began. It was like, a very small honeymoon period.
And so take us through that. Obviously, you're starting as mayor. You have all of these ideas. You've been doing this for 16 years. And then a few days later, the world changes. What were some of the issues we faced that were unique to us? What were some of the issues we faced which were not? And then how did you and the council go about answering all these questions?
Well, you're actually pretty good at this. I mean, this should be like Oprah with Robert Haas. I mean, where you get these questions from, man? But essentially, what occurred was, we had heard about these things before. You remember the mad cow disease and the Ebola, and you just heard of these different things that happen across the country, across the world. They would happen, and then they would just kind of go away. They never really reached our shores. And it was just that all of a sudden, we were getting some real thoughts that this thing was real. And, we started talking with epidemiologists from across the country and folks here in Georgia. And, it was now on our shores. And we were looking in the face of St. Patrick's Day 2020. And those of you that know, St. Patrick's Day is our sacred cow, so to speak. We have the second largest St. Patrick's Day celebration in the country. It is extremely important to us, and we needed to be able to try to.
I think you just muted yourself, Mayor. Or I did. So just unmute yourself. Yeah, I think, there you go.
I'm sorry. And so we're sitting here and we're looking in the midst of all this that is going on, and we're trying to figure this thing out. And yet the thing we didn't know was that this was an airborne, it was transmitted in the air. And so we know that crowds were bad. So they had South by Southwest, which was something really huge that was occurring, and all of these things. And then the thought came that, maybe we shouldn't have St. Patrick's Day. We had the second largest St. Patrick's Day celebration in the country next to New York. It's New York, Savannah, Chicago, Boston. And people were like, you're not going to cancel St. Patrick's Day, are you? And I agonized. I went to Washington, D.C. for a conference, and I was talking with epidemiologists there on the federal level. And I was just, it stressed me. I couldn't sleep. And I know all of you being people of faith, I know that you understand divine inspiration. I believe that God speaks to you. And I will tell you that one night I happened to fall asleep, and I woke up the next morning. It was about 3:00 in the morning, but I knew exactly, you have got to cancel that festival. And so I as soon as daylight came, I called my office, I changed my flight arrangements, I came back to Savannah, and I said, everybody associated with St. Patrick's Day, I need you to be at City Hall when I arrive. And so the question was, either you're going to cancel it, I'm going to cancel it. In retrospect, that turned out to be one of the best decisions our community could have made. And it was a very difficult at the time. I received death threats. People were really upset. Businesses said we're going to go under. But in the end, when you look at what happened in Mardi Gras in New Orleans, they're shut down this year because they had such exposure last year. And so for us, it was a smart move. And then, from there, we were looking at, like, my question was like, which plague are we in this week? I mean, there was the angry bees, and it was the this, and it was the that, it was the this, and then of course, Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and then you were having demonstrations happening across the country, many of them turning out to be extremely disruptive and destructive. We had one happening here, and Rabbi Haas will tell you, it was a hot day, May the 31st, in which we had thousands of people coming here. And, we told them absolutely, you can come here, you have a right to protest, you have a right to demonstrate, but at the end of the day, you're not going to wreck up our city. And I will tell you, we had well over 150 faith leaders that were there, including Rabbi Haas. And it was beautiful because we recognized in Savannah's demonstrations, we had people of all faiths there, people of all colors, all ages, all creeds. And we all agreed on one thing, that, Black lives do matter. And you know what? That people should not die under the knees of a police officer. We all agreed on that. And what ended up happening in Savannah was we ended up with a demonstration where, now mind you, Atlanta was on fire. Charleston had all this damage downtown. In Savannah, we ended up with 16 arrests and no property damage at all. And that is a testament to our community saying absolutely that we could be mad, we could be upset, we could demand change, but we don't have to be destructive in order to do that. And I think that's what shows the character of Savannah.
Yeah, and it was really well organized by the people organizing, but also you were there, police chief was there, National Guard was on called in case. You told all the leaders that there's going to be instigators, and I was there, and I had never seen instigators before, but I saw them. People came particularly just to do that. So again, you're right. It does say a lot for our city, but it says a lot for the leadership as well. Do we have any other questions? We'll take a moment now if anybody has any questions, and I have to roll through to see if your hands are up. So,
Rabbi, it's Carol Greenberg.
Please, Carol. Carol.
Hello, Mayor.
Hey, Ms. Greenberg.
Hey, I want to thank you for your exceptional leadership. I have been watching you do amazing things at a very difficult time, and I'll tell you, Rabbi Haas is a hard act to follow because he's always at everything. You're always at everything. At every event I go to, everything I click into, you're always there representing our city very well.
Thank you.
And I even agreed with the St. Patrick's Day, even though for the first time in our 34 years, I had actually been asked to sit on a float
Oh, wow.
at the parade. But I agreed that I was not the reason why you canceled it and that it was okay. Those kinds of hard decisions is why you've got the big job. But I want to ask you, when you made decisions such as a mask mandate for the city, and politicians on state level did not necessarily agree with you, have you had to make repairs to your relationships with people at the state level, such as the governor, or do you just constantly do what you think is best for the city, regardless of what's happening around the state? Because I really do appreciate how you've been trying to keep our numbers down.
Well, thank you for the question as well. Well, I think that, I recognize for me that at the end of the day, it's about the business. There are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies in politics, just permanent interests. I am a New York Giants fan. I love my New York Giants. Oh, see, look at I see some good Giants fans there. I can't stand the Dallas Cowboys. Can't stand them. And so guess what? When I'm playing them, I can't stand the Dallas Cowboy fans. And they can't stand me. But at the end of the day, when the game is over, whoever won, you brag for a little while and then we're back to being friends again. So I hope the governor doesn't take it personally, but I'm doing my job. I took an oath to protect the citizens of Savannah against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so it makes sense to wear a mask. It makes sense to have a mask mandate. It makes sense for the governor to insist for everyone to wear a mask. It makes sense for us not to have closed, been the last to close and the first to open. And so at the end of the day, he's still our governor. We will still afford him that respect. But when he steps on the toes of folks in my city or puts himself in a position where I feel he's going to be a detriment to the well-being and the welfare of the folks in my city, then he's going to have an issue with me. When that issue is over, we'll be okay again. So hopefully he holds no ill feelings against me, although I did notice that Savannah didn't get one of the mass distribution sites. But then again, on the other end of it, Savannah, actually, Chatham County had the most vaccinated folks than anywhere else in the state. And our numbers are still lower than any other big city in the state. And again, that's because, again, we're going to do what's right. We're going to follow the science. We're not going to deal with politics. We don't care about Democrat or Republican, because guess what? The pandemic doesn't care about Democrat or Republican. We don't care about black or white. We don't care about emotions. We don't care about perceptions or beliefs. All we care about is following the science. And so, I would dare to lead or teach you all because I'm not specialized in that. Rabbi Haas went to school to do that kind of stuff. I would not dare be able to give you medical advice because I haven't been able to do that. I've never went to medical school, but we have people who are epidemiologists. We have people who are scientists, and we have people who are knowledgeable about these things. And so my thing is, follow the science. Simple. And we know that how we get out of this is 3 simple acts of love, 3 simple acts of being a good neighbor. You wear a mask, you wash your hands, and you watch your distance. And then I'll add another one. If you feel like you're sick, get tested. And number 5 is when the vaccine is available, get the vaccine.
Toby.
Yeah, so that leads me to the question I wanted to ask earlier, and you led right into it. It seems like we have a very good system for vaccinating. I've been fortunate to be able to get both shots. But how are we doing in outlying areas where people don't have access to computers, where they don't have access to transportation? And I don't know where I heard about it, maybe even here, that there are vans going out to vaccinate into areas, and I don't know if it's Savannah at all. But how are we doing in the areas that have less access to all of the other services?
Okay. Well, I would be speculating about places really outside of Savannah because I'm not really sure, but I will tell you this. And this is where the discussion is, where we do have to talk about issues of race and issues of class. Because we know that there are inequities as it relates to that. We know that people that are Black and brown are more likely to die from COVID-19. And that could be because of comorbidities. It could be because of lack of access to healthcare. We know that poor people don't have the ability necessary for internet to be able to go online and to book an appointment. So, here what we've been really insisting on is how do we find ways of really getting the word out to people? How do we reach out to underserved communities and make sure everyone has equal access to the vaccine? Whether they take it or not is on them. And so that's why we've been working with like Rabbi Haas and Savannah Faith, because it's important for us to make sure that we are reaching our entire community. Because again, if someone is more predisposed to die from it, then that's the person we need to really get to make sure that they have it. And, we've had some issues here of people, I heard something about some people dressing up as little old people to try to get the vaccine. I mean, that kind of foolishness. Or they say they're caregivers and they're not caregivers. We have to really frown on those types of things. But my goal here is to make sure, again, that we're getting the vaccine on where it needs to be. Now, admittedly, this process rolled out, it wasn't really all that good. We didn't do that well. We are getting better, and we're getting people vaccinated quicker. And how many of y'all have gotten vaccinated already? All right, see? Y'all feel all right, right? Y'all doing all right? Y'all look great. So you know what? I mean, and I've been asked, and I probably have to get it because I'm not 65, but because of the position I hold, they're like, you need to go ahead and do it. You need to go ahead and do it. And I've been trying not to because I want somebody to say, well, he took my vaccine. But eventually I'm gonna have to go ahead and do it. But we recognize that, we have lived through some amazing science. I mean, we have shown really, I think through the providence of God, we've been able to show when the human spirit determines that we want to do something, and we're really able to put all of our mind and all of our efforts and all of our funds to it. And certainly kudos to the Trump administration for that whole warp speed thing, because the truth was we were all focused on the same thing. And I will tell you from the clinical trials that even occurred here in Savannah, every step, every box was checked. They did everything they were supposed to do. The difference was they had the money to do it and just get it done. And so, people are living, and, for those, I don't think any of y'all were here in 1918, we'll be better and we'll be stronger because of this.
And I think that's a great point. But I also think I'm going to have to differ with you on the injection. As mayor, I think it should be something that you do as soon as possible, just because you do meet with so many people, and we know. So I vote for you to have your injection as soon as possible, but that's just me. That's a whole different issue. Anybody have any other questions? All right, so we'll continue on. Now,
There are two people.
We have two.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see everybody at once. So, David, did you have a question? David Jacobson, did you have a question?
I do, but David and Ron have questions before me.
Okay, which Ron Schwartz?
Yes.
Okay, Ron, please.
Mayor Johnson, it is such a pleasure and privilege to be able to see you and discuss things with you.
Thank you.
My wife and I are in the Low Country, in Bluffton, and
Why?
I would like to
Why aren't
say,
you here in Savannah with us?
well, because you weren't mayor at the time when we moved here.
Come on back. Come on.
You see, it would have been a privilege to be able to vote for you, but we could not.
Understood.
But we've been following you since you were an alderman, and we're here almost 23 years in the Low Country. What I particularly like what you said in the beginning about history. I totally agree with you that while you cannot erase history, but if you were able to, people would then forget about what happened, and we don't want people to forget. And quite frankly, if they were able to erase history, they would erase the Holocaust. Where would we be then? So thank you so much for that marvelous answer that you gave before. And
Thank
again, we're going to continue watching you. You're doing a great job. And I'm telling the whole truth. You are, I believe, the best mayor in Savannah since we're here. And we've had some good ones.
Right.
So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you this, I've run a program for 25 years called the Chatham County Youth Commission. We have over now 700, 800 kids. And every year we would go to DC. And I take them to DC. Usually it would be next week. We went last year. And believe it or not, every year, and these are kids from all of our community, about 40, 50 kids. And believe it or not, every year I take them to the Holocaust Museum. And admittedly, in Washington, D.C., admittedly, it is a very difficult experience for them. Extremely difficult. And I will tell you because I know, and I've been there so many times that I can't count, but I know their mood when they go in, and I know their mood when they come out. And the same point, Mr. Ron, is what I tell them when they come out. And and something invariably you'll have some kids say, "So why did you do this?" And it was like, because as a community, we can never allow that to happen again. And so, for our young people, we have to sense that we can't protect them from everything. because if they're protected, then human history will get us back to where we were. And so there has to be reminders. And when you walk out to the reflecting pool at the Holocaust Museum, you see the scripture there. I forgot which one it says, but it says, "You are my witnesses. You are my witnesses." And the point of that is that you are going to tell this story of our history, the good and the bad, because it's important that when those who are eyewitnesses have left the scene, that we're telling the story so that we never evolve to a point where we go back to where we come from. So history is very, very important. And so I appreciate that comment.
Thanks. We couldn't agree more. We're going to continue with some of the questions. Like David Kahn, were you the David had a question?
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, congratulations. I think you're doing an outstanding job.
Thank you.
I'd like to clarify, though, you're not a Yankees fan too, are you?
Of course I am.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Come on, man. Come on.
You've been down here long enough. You can become a Braves fan.
I can't do it. As a matter of fact, and I shouldn't say too loud because they might be listening, but I mean, I've been a Yankees fan since I was a little boy. I mean, I remember in 1977, Reggie Jackson in Brooklyn, he had his own bar, his own candy bar. It was called Reggie. I remember in 1979 when Thurman Munson was killed in that plane crash. I mean, I remember when the Atlanta Braves and the Yankees were playing and y'all won 3 games and y'all thought y'all were doing something. And then we won the next 4.
Why do you have to bring that up?
We closed Turner Field. I remember that the Yankees are the most decorated franchise of any and all professional sports. I remember that. But I do recognize that, that I love the Braves except when they're playing the Yankees.
That's fair. That's fair. Tell us a little bit more. I know that you and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms were aligned on the mask issue and our governor was not. Tell us a little bit more about the dynamics of that and the interaction and the conversation you guys were having.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we have really forged a good relationship. Savannah, Atlanta, Augusta, Athens, Albany, mayors just started talking because you remember Albany was hit the worst. It was because of 2 funerals. I mean, at one point, Albany, being as small as it is, had the highest number of infections and deaths in the state. And so we were really talking about at the time, remember now, the states were not telling us, the governor was saying, do what you want to do. So you had, some cities doing this and some cities doing that. We decided in our areas that, we wanted to do all we could to be really proactive as it related to trying to slow the spread. Again, we recognize that wearing a mask slowed the spread. I mean, the science was very, very clear about that. And it was the least restrictive as it related to people. People think masks are actually constricting, but actually masks represented freedom. Masks allowed our businesses to stay open. It allowed people to go to and fro. And allow people to remain relatively safe in all of this madness. So the time came up. The science was very clear. Massive mandates were occurring across the country. The governor's office was saying, oh, well, no, we don't think we need a mask mandate. And the mayors were talking. And, I absolutely felt like, that we should have a mask mandate. And secondly, I believe I had the power under my emergency declaration to issue a mask mandate. So I said I was doing it. And the other mayors agreed that we would be the guinea pig to see what happened. I felt it was right for Savannah to be first because we are the mother city of Georgia. And mothers, as you all know, protect their children. And we're going to protect our citizens. So on July the 1st, we enacted the first mask mandate in the state of Georgia. As you know, very controversial. And then other cities started following behind us. On July the 3rd, Governor Kemp said that he would not challenge our mask mandate. And then around July the 5th or 6th or so, Atlanta issued theirs. As you all know, the governor sued Mayor Bottoms in Atlanta for the mask mandate, but did not sue Savannah. I think part of the reason was because the governor would have to come down to Savannah to do that. I don't think he really wanted to come to Savannah to sue us. The other thing is that when you come into Savannah and go into our courthouse, you have to wear a mask. And if you don't wear a mask, you can't get into the courthouse. And when you go into the courtroom, you have to see a judge, you have to wear a mask. So how are you going to tell a judge that they can't have a mask mandate in courts that they're requiring masks? So, our mask mandate stands where, since July the 1st, and we can see, even in July, if you all remember, we had a sharp uptick in July. We had an uptick too, but it was not as bad as cities who did not have a mask mandate. So we believe, and our coastal health partners and state believes, that it was because of the mask that helped keep our numbers relatively low, as compared to other places.
And thank you. So we'll go to David Jacobson, and then Mari, we'll have you afterwards, Mari Pasternak.
Thank you. Mayor, I do apologize. I have a slight, probably not a slight, speech impediment. I feel bad that I'm going to ask the question that is kind of a nuts and bolts kind of thing personally. 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, we had you, 2 or 3 years ago, we had your predecessor telling us that we were going, the pay for parking is going to go up and reach us. And I think it was supposed to be this year that it was going to reach us. And there were going to be some issues with basically paying to pray type of thing for our services. Is it still going to be that way? Do you see that, or is that going to be every day, but Friday night and Saturday?
Well, I mean, I do remember when my predecessor said that, and that was, definitely difficult. My position is this: is that first of all, first things first. First things is we have to get past this pandemic, and secondly, we need as many people praying for Savannah as possible. And as far as I'm concerned, although we certainly can use the money, I'm gonna do all I can to work with our mosques, our synagogues, our churches, and our temples to ensure that people have the ability to be able to pray. We need people to pray. I believe if y'all praying for us, I think God will take care of us. We won't need the money.
And it's a good answer. And David, it's a good thing because we did talk about that previously, and we had talked that if the city did do that, they would give us free codes for just during our service times that we wouldn't have to. So hopefully if that does come up, we'll still go into that discussion. Good question. Mari.
Mayor Johnson, it is a pleasure to meet you via Zoom.
Pleasure.
My wife, Shelley, and I are speaking to you from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, about 1,200 miles.
Wow.
And 40 degrees colder. We spent a wonderful winter, last winter in Savannah, and we were very pleased that your voice, thanks to CNN, carried to Eau Claire during your little kerfuffle with Governor Kemp. We were very pleased to see your mask advocacy. We look forward to coming back to Savannah next winter and subsequent winters. And I guess my question is, we hope to spend winters in Savannah and escape before the summer and before hurricane season and come back for the good parts of the year. But we very much, during our time in Savannah, want to be part of the community, not just tourists, not just visitors. I know there are many others like us, and I'm curious about your thoughts of how folks who are in Savannah part of the year can truly be part of the community and contribute to the community.
Well, thank you. We consider part-time Savannahans Savannahans. So we don't make a distinction between full-time or part-time. So you're just Savannahans in wherever you are. I think first thing, you're part of a great congregation that does great things for our community. I think again, Rabbi Haas is really engaged and locked into things that are happening in our community. We also have what's called 2-on-1, which is locally here, our United Way, for a variety of volunteer opportunities, both that you can physically participate in, or you can financially participate in, or you can give some brain power to, and we'd be more than glad to forward those to you. What makes Savannah great is that, we have the strength of people. And I will tell you that during the last year, I use this moniker, Savannah Strong, and I mean it. And we have seen Savannahans, people from all of our community, of all races, all colors, all creeds, that have stepped up to help people. Help people. Feeding people, helping to clothe people. We've just seen people giving and helping where they can. Going to shop for people that have COVID and all of these various things. I just think that, there are hundreds of opportunities. I know for me, it breaks my heart to see individuals who are, sick, or those that are homeless on the side of the streets. We're aggressively trying to find places for people to live. I think it's unconscionable for us to be in a community that does so well. And then we have people that live in tents and live underneath highways, and live on park benches, and live in cars, and live in extended stay hotels. So, part of our initiative called Housing Savannah is to work to make sure that everybody has access to a home. And so, again, there are a variety of ways. So when you're here, let us know. We will have you working so much, we're not coming back next winter. He got us working too hard.
Thank you. We're going to go now to Leslie. Leslie is our new mayor, and unlike you, she started just recently during the pandemic, so she didn't know she was starting in. So welcome, Leslie.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. And I too, like so many others have said, so appreciate your leadership. I think you are surely the right mayor for this time we're in right now, and so appreciate that. But it's funny, I raised my hand and then you sort of went into my question just now. I have been very concerned of late about the homelessness. I live in Midtown in Ardsley, and the amount of people I see on the street these days, sleeping on the street in areas that you didn't used to see that in the past, just says to me that it seems the problem is expanding. It's all over Savannah now, that you see on any street corner, you see people asking for money. I am concerned about what is being done right now to help those people. I can understand that because of COVID, maybe they're not going to shelters as much. What is being done to help? And I'm also very concerned about the safety of those people, especially some that look like they have possibly some mental health issues in the street. Coming down Victory Drive at night, you see people that it's a wonder they're not getting hit. So I just wondered kind of what initiatives are going on and how we're addressing that.
Well, it's a multi-phase question. And so in a way, and please don't jump on me, but in a way, I'm grateful for the pandemic as it related to homelessness. And let me tell you the reason why. It's because it's in our face now. Before, we could kind of conveniently go by and go our way. The folks that were homeless were hidden. They just stayed in our way. And to be honest with you, we as a community weren't really motivated to do anything big about homelessness because, as long as, out of sight, out of mind, we didn't see there was no issue. What has happened now because of the pandemic is, for example, shelters have to now have 1/3 of their capacity. So, essentially 10% of their capacity. No, 30%. So, for example, if you have a shelter that has 30 people in it, usually, now they can only have 10. So that means 20 people are now on the street. And so all of our shelters are doing that. So what happens is people who were not on the streets before are now on the streets. And so now, because you see them, I think it's now people saying, wow, I didn't realize we had such a problem. Oh yeah, we've always had such an issue. The issue is, that's one thing. The other issue is that people have a constitutional right to be in the public space. So if they want to be in the park or on a street corner, they can absolutely do that. I think I've seen some cities where they just said, let's move all the homeless people out of our downtown so people don't have to see them. I mean, I just don't think we treat people like that. I think we treat people with humanity. We treat them with care. The city, to our credit, we have land off of what's called Dundee Street, which is off of Wheaton Street. The Homes Authority built tiny homes for veterans, but we recognize that doesn't affect all of our homeless. So we have started building what's called modular homes, so to speak, for the homeless. The important thing about that is that it has sanitation and it has running water, which a lot of these folks don't have. To be honest with you, the money for these things, because we did not raise taxes, we did not, it's difficult to bring about money to do these types of things. But I think that we are aggressively trying to move toward a much better solution for helping our homeless neighbors. One of the things I've wanted to do as mayor, and you'll hear about it more, is that I want to have the city so mobilized that when we have extreme heat, that we have cooling stations, and when we have extreme cold, we have heating stations. I mean, if people are going to be in the street, if that's what they want to do, they have the right to do that. But we should be able to at least be able to provide heat and shelter, heat and cool for those that need it. As you know, Savannah sometimes goes through those extremes. As it relates to mental health, our police department now we have what's called a behavioral health unit. We're hiring social workers because we recognize that if you have a police officer dealing with a homeless person with mental issues, really their only recourse is that of a punitive nature. We now have social workers that are riding with police officers to be able to deal with issues of, continuum of care, of best services, of referrals. Like you said, someone might be acting a little off, but they may not have had their medication. Let's get them their medication. Let's find out who the next of kin is. Let's see, maybe they're hungry. Maybe they have some medical issue that needs to be addressed. So our police department is becoming much more service oriented like that. And so I think that is a really good deal about trying to be able to do that. And finally, you talked about the homeless in the street. Is just last Thursday, we passed an ordinance that addressed that. And again, it's not to regulate homelessness, but it's to regulate the behavior of people in our streets and medians. If you've ever drove down the street or gotten off of the Truman Parkway or something, and you see people, they run out in the middle of the street and then cars are coming, they run back out. And in the summertime, you see kids doing that too. They run out in the street. And I mean, we've had 4 people to die in Savannah because of that type of behavior. So we have passed an ordinance that will help police to regulate the behavior of people running out into medians, approaching people. I think, again, that is for public safety of not only the pedestrian, but the motorist. So I hope I answered your question.
You surely did. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? And I can't see everybody. Sid, please.
Yes, I just want to thank the mayor for being here.
Thank you.
We're from the Low Country, and we live in unincorporated Beaufort County. So we do not have a mayor. So I'm willing to adopt you as
I'm ready to adopt you. Come on.
oh, that's fine.
I'm going to be his campaign manager. I'm going to get all these signs. Johnson for unincorporated Beaufort area of South Carolina. So that I think I'll do a good job there. Anybody else have any questions before we conclude? I see Rena, I think you had a question. And go and take yourself off mute, Rena.
It's just Mayor Johnson, I just want to repeat what everybody else said. I love you.
I love you
Okay?
too.
I love you, and I am from a neighbor from the Low Country. Okay. Listen, I was just wondering what your opinion was, maybe personal or not. I know businesses have to stay open, how are you feeling about safety in restaurants? You know, people going into restaurants.
Savannah is known for its food.
Right.
Rabbi Haas has gained pounds since he's gotten here. You just can't come here and just be the same size that you were. And that is part of what makes Savannah what Savannah is. I will tell you this, is that there are standards by which restaurants can safely serve food. And to be honest with you, personally, I will not support or patronize any restaurant that is not taking the utmost in safety. And there are a couple of things. First of all, that all servers and people preparing food are wearing masks. Secondly, that there are opportunities for hand sanitizer and washing hand stations throughout the facility. Thirdly, that things that are communal, like salt and pepper shakers. I shouldn't see salt, pepper shakers and ketchup and mustard and those types of condiments around. I mean, that should be done by request. You can see when people are taking that type of, if they're encouraging more debit cards rather than cash. You see those types of businesses. I mean, I think we can get both ways. I think we can have the great food and still keep people safe at the same time. And so, where I've seen restaurants where they have not done that, I've just not gone in there. I'm just like, I'm sorry. You're not taking precautions to protect me. The other thing that's important to me is that our children are working in those restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Our children are serving, and they're working in hotels, and they're working in hospitality. And the fact is that if we don't protect them, guess who they come home to? To you.
Yeah.
And so although COVID might pass through them, they get a cough, I feel better. But for us, as you know, it just affects us differently. So, I mean, to me, a business that cares enough about its employees, cares enough about its customers, and I'm going to do all I can to support them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think we've all seen our waistlines expand. My daughter the other day just came up and pointed at my tummy, and she pointed and touched me, said, "What's this?" This. Daddy has food in there. So I got on the elliptical that night. I just wanted you to know that. Before we conclude, and I want to thank the mayor, but before I say thank you and conclude, I'm going to invite Leslie, our president, to give us any announcements. You're showing me, Leslie.
I'm sorry. All right, I think I'm there now. First off, Mayor Johnson, again, I just want to thank you so much. It's wonderful for you to join us today, and you're right, Rabbi could just have a new job on radio or TV, and look what, but he has to save enough time to be our rabbi, so
right.
there you have it. But we thank you so much for joining us today, and I thank everybody in our congregation who came on Zoom, or the people watching on YouTube too, for taking part. What affects our city affects our congregation, and what affects our congregation affects our city. It's surely all intertwined. But just to remind everybody just of a few upcoming things, remember Purim starts this coming weekend, so be sure to be online Friday night at 5:30 for the Purim spiel and the Megillah reading and all the fun associated with that. Also, remember that there is a Purim festival at the JEA. Rabbi, it's tomorrow, right?
Is it tomorrow? Next Sunday?
Oh dear.
I think it's next Sunday.
Next Sunday. I'm sorry. So especially those with kids, lots of fun in the JEA parking lot. And also remember the JEA Film Festival, the Savannah Jewish Federation Film Festival, coming up at the end of the month. Everyone have a lovely weekend, good Shabbos, and thank you again, Mayor Johnson and Rabbi Haas.
Leslie, it's the 28th for the JEA.
Say that again, Carol?
The 28th, starting at 3:30.
Thank
It's a Purim in the park lot.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Carol, for that. And again, I want to say thank you to our wonderful mayor who came and spoke on a Saturday. We know you were very busy. We appreciate it. I think you were straight on with what we all think about our city, that we need to be really leaders and that we need to look at the science. I mean, except for the foolish dedication to that football team called the New York Giants. I can't remember their names, as speaking as a diehard Cowboy friend from Dallas. Except for that, we're way off. We really appreciate it. We know you're doing so much, and I know you're very good at answering questions. We didn't have time, but if anybody has questions, I'm sure they can email you. And your office is so easy to work with if you haven't met all the people there. So thank you very much. We'll see everybody next month.
If I may.
Oh, please.
I want to thank you all for the opportunity. I hope that this will be my last time. I've committed that our administration will be transparent and it will be accessible to you. If we make decisions, even decisions you may not agree with, that you understand at least we thought about it. I will tell you that Savannah is a beautiful place. We just celebrated our 288th birthday. We've been around for a long time. We've seen a lot of good times and we've seen a lot of bad times. I'm convinced still that our best days are ahead of us. We are who we are because of our diversity. We are who we are because we're able to live and to work together and to love each other, to care about each other, and work toward a common goal. And you are a very, very big part of that. Mikveh Israel is one of our preeminent houses of faith, of any faith in our community. And I appreciate you all, no matter where you live, even if you don't live in Chatham County or Savannah, even if you live all the way in Wisconsin, or even if you're in unincorporated Chatham County or unincorporated Beaufort, we still consider you a part of Savannah Strong. So keep us in your prayers, keep us in your thoughts. Again, this is a walk of faith. But as we always say, we keep the faith that we're going to get through this. We don't know how and we don't know when, but we know that we will. But in the meantime, we're going to follow the signs. And so I look forward to being able to come and worship with you in person as soon as it's safe to do so. And we look forward to that. Perfect way to end because we are celebrating our 288th anniversary in July. So funny enough, perfect. Let me know so I can do a proclamation and do something. Oh, that's a great idea. All right, perfect. We do a proclamation and get you to come to council, and we'll do something big. We'll do something. Well, thank you again. And as we know, it's been so easy to work with as an alderman and so easy to work with the councilman and so easy to work with as the mayor. So again, thank you so much for coming on. We look forward to inviting you when you can come in person and keep up the great work. And thank you everybody on Zoom for joining us. This is going to stay on our YouTube page. So if anybody was unable to view, please let them know to watch there. So stay safe, everyone, and we will see you soon. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you.